Hello everyone, it's Johnny Catrue, and today I listened for the first time to the new album from Limp Bizkit. I also listened for the first time to the new album from English electronic musician Lone called Always Inside Your Head. I first got into Lone back in 2008 when my friend Sean lent me the album Lemurian, which is a really beautiful and pretty underappreciated album, I think. It sounded so cutting edge at the time, but also carried with it this kind of Boards of Canada influenced nostalgia that I really loved. Lone finally got some more recognition with his album in 2012 called Galaxy Garden, which took things in a more energetic, breakbeat and house influenced direction. The album really explodes with color and inventiveness. It made me a fan of Lone all over again. More recently, Lone has released a huge number of EPs. They expanded a lot on the dance influences of Galaxy Garden. I especially loved Ambivert Tools Volumes 2 and 4. Check out Pulsar, for example, from Ambivert Tools 4. It's a beautiful track. And that brings us to today's brand new album, Always Inside Your Head, his first proper LP since 2016. The rest of this video will be highlights from my first listen to this album, which I live streamed over on Twitch. If you want to join me for more full album listening parties, you can follow me over there at twitch.tv/JohnnyCatrue. So do me a favor and click the like button on this video, and let's get into the album. So I'm excited to get into this new Lone album. Been really looking forward to this one, as you know, Al. And the very first song on the album was the first single, and it was my favorite of the singles. We're starting it off with track 1, Hidden by Horizons. I love the way he uses the texture of the voice like it's an instrument, and the way he uses the reverb as well is just gorgeous. I guess the feeling I get from it reminds me of like 90s trance music that was big in the charts in the UK when I was a kid. I wonder if Lone has nostalgia for those sounds too. It does kind of feel like he could have got away with drawing that ending out a bit more, couldn't he? The breakbeat kind of teases a lot through that song. You hear like flourishes of it, and then at the very end it kind of let loose. But yeah, I do get the feeling that he could have like added an extra minute of it letting loose. But I guess in that way it works really well as an opening track because it's kind of introducing you to the sounds, and the fact that it leaves you wanting more. That's kind of what you want at the beginning of an album. So let's move into track 2. I believe this was also a single that we might have heard once. It's called Realize. Yeah, I remember this one. Keeping the mood going nicely. As I felt about that song when I first heard it as a single, I did feel it was not as melodically, harmonically exhilarating as Hidden by Horizons. But in terms of sounds, I think it has a lot about it that I really like. And yeah, as I said during the song, does continue the mood really well of the first song. So I'm definitely feeling immersed in the album after that song, which is great. Now, if I'm not mistaken, next is track 3, and I believe it's the first one we haven't heard yet. It's called Echo Paths. Love those rich, warm pad sounds. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was another beautiful one. I'm quite pleased by how consistent he's keeping that vibe while also exploring it in different ways on each track. You know, I did wonder if Hidden by Horizons might be a bit more of a lone, a lone track in its style. But yeah, you know, these first 3 tracks have all had this kind of like dreamy but very trancey kind of vibe, and all seem to be using vocal samples by this same singer who I believe is Morgane Diet. Sounds great. But yeah, I did like the more down-tempo vibe, the slower speed of that song, while still using those same ambient textures. Sounded really nice. Yeah, I really like the way that Lone is using the voice as a textural instrument just to give everything that unique feeling that this album has. And he also seems to be using reverb really well on not just the voice, but all the other instruments, even the drums. Just makes everything sound really atmospheric in a way that really appeals to me. Let's move on to track 4. It's called Visited by Astronauts. Just a short one, this one. All those bending notes are very old school trance, but it reminds me of Gang Gang Dance. Yeah, lovely interlude. Again, definitely keeping that same beautiful atmosphere going. And yeah, as I said, it reminded me of Gang Gang Dance, the American experimental band, because they like to use a lot of those kind of old school MIDI sounding keyboard sounds, but in a really lush environment. It really pumps up the nostalgia factor. I love it for that. Next song is the longest on the whole album. I think this one was a single as well. This is track 5. It's called In Love Too. Okay, I see this was released as a last-minute single, but I haven't heard it yet. Okay, bringing back the house beat from the EPs. Oh, still got a minute of this left. Got some kind of interlude built into the track. Very Geo-Gaddy. Very nice. Yeah, the kind of warm distortion on the sound there definitely reminded me of Geo-Gaddy by Boards of Canada. And yeah, I think I mentioned that in Lone's earliest days, I always felt that Boards of Canada was probably his biggest influence, sort of bringing their approach into more modern production techniques. But yeah, the rest of that song was obviously a blissed out trance jam that I enjoyed quite a bit. And I'm just really happy with how consistent with its atmosphere this album has been so far. Because as I say, I loved the atmosphere so much on the first single. So I like how it all feels like it's kind of coming forth from that song. You know, like that song sets the mood and then everything else is kind of explorations into that approach. Now, the next song, track 6, is called Mouth of God. And this one was definitely released as a single and we listened to it a couple times, I think, on stream. Here we go. Oh yeah. This is what made me doubt that the rest of the album would be so blissed out, because this song was so different, quite a bit harder, almost acidy, isn't it? I love that bass drum hit he does every now and then. It sounds like the sound is being sucked out. He doesn't overuse it though, so when it hits, you feel it in your gut. Really nice sound design in that one. Yeah, you know what? I enjoyed that quite a bit more than I did as a single. You know, I think when I heard it as a single, I was just a bit disappointed that it wasn't more in the style of Hidden by Horizons. But in the context of the album, we've had plenty of material in the style of Hidden by Horizons, which has been very satisfying for me. I love that he's explored that mood so thoroughly. But it means that once this song, Mouth of God, came around, it was so much harder than most of the other songs. You know, with a bit of that acid influence at the beginning, but then, you know, some glitching and yeah, just generally more hard-edged sounds. I thought it was really well placed in the album. And especially after the kind of epic blissed out nature of In Love Too, I thought it was, you know, the perfect contrast. All right, so moving on to track 7. It's called Akoya, featuring Morgane Diet, as the first song was. So we'll get to hear her voice again here. So here we go, track 7, Akoya. Damn. All right, so it was really nice to hear the voice of Morgane Diet again, Morgane Diet, from the first song. She sounds great over these kind of instrumentals. Like I've been saying, the texture of her voice and the way Lone layers it and puts just the right reverb on it just sounds great. Of course, the standout moment of that track was when the bass dropped. Sounded really impactful, but in a really tasteful way. Yeah, I will say that I did feel that that song felt a little slow, especially compared to some of the more exhilarating tracks that we've had earlier in the album. But still, it carried the atmosphere on of the album. Sounded really good. But yeah, I guess I'm just hoping for something with a bit more intensity as we go forward. So moving on to track 8, it's called Tree for Tree. More of an intense tech house kind of vibe incoming. Yeah, I think he had a bit of this kind of thing on his EPs over the last few years. Yeah, this is just what I wanted next from the album. He's doing something with the frequencies there it's like he's boosting all the mids. Very nice. Yeah, I definitely felt that that song built up some intensity just when it was needed on the album. You know, it kind of injected some energy back in. And I really enjoyed it for that. You know, while still keeping the, relatively same atmosphere that the album has been building throughout. But yeah, just when it was needed, it got a bit more intense. And obviously, as I said, there was quite a bit more techiness going on in there. With the small amount of knowledge I have, I would call that a tech house kind of tune. But yeah, really good track. So on to track 9. This one is called Undaunted. Yeah, I'm a sucker for those kind of sounds. It's so thick here, enveloping. Almost an R&B vibe in the chords being used here with the vocal part, but in a completely non-R&B context. Yeah, we'll have some ambient lamb for lunch. Yeah, when that song started, I felt a bit like, I don't really want an ambient track at this point in the album. After the energy that Tree for Tree had built up, I wanted more of that to continue, but yeah, it didn't take long for me to sink into that song, and I enjoyed it quite a bit in the end. And yeah, as we said during the song, I liked how it seemed to be calling back to those early trip hop sounds, particularly that first Lamb album. I love that first Lamb album, but it's like that kind of sound, but stretched out, shot into space, and yeah, really glorious, beautiful stuff. And that just leaves us with the last song, track 10. It's called Coming Into Being and Passing Away. Let's see how he decides to end it off. This one isn't working for me quite as well as the last one so far. I like those little bits where he's reversing the sounds, but feels a little nondescript other than that. I guess it reminded me of earlier One O Tricks Point Never kind of stuff. Do like those aquatic sounds bubbling under the surface there. So there we go, guys. The end of the album. Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed with that as a last track. I thought it was, pretty. Nothing wrong with it. But I think because track 9 was also an ambient track, but pretty strong one, I thought. It kind of made that one pale a bit in comparison to me, I think. If track 9 had been something more lively and energetic, and then track 10 had been as it is, maybe I would have been a bit more forgiving. But yeah, for me, it just felt a bit of well put out, a bit of a thin ending. That's right. And whenever it felt like there was something going on, like there were little bits of cuts, some reversing of the sounds, the water sounds underneath, all sounded pretty interesting, but there was too few and far between on those interesting moments. So yeah, a bit of a shame that I had to feel that way about the last track, because overall, really strong album. Probably one of my favorites from Lone, actually, because I think that it really amplifies the aspects of his music that I love the most. The atmosphere, the beauty, that kind of throwback, nostalgia kind of vibe, but throwing it into the future with really strong modern production. It feels like an album based on the concepts he was working with on his EPs over the last few years. And it's been a long time coming, that, because he put out a lot of EPs. Most of them fantastic. So yeah, this feels like a culmination of what Lone's been working towards, and I found it very satisfying. Could have been stronger, you know, like I say, last track, a couple of other tracks throughout where lost me a little bit. Maybe a little bit of extra variety might have helped it at times, but you know, it did have that, you know, here and there. You know, there were moments where it was slower, quieter, and then other moments where it got more techy and intense, and I did enjoy that. But yeah, just to say that I think he could have gone a little further with it, but what he did come out with, I think, is really good, really strong, and yeah, I'm happy with it. So if you've enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me with the link in the description to buy me a coffee. It really helps me to be able to keep making these videos, keep my channel going, so I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take it easy.